Welcome to another glorious Friday's the Speaking for Him podcast. I'm Dan Van Zalen, and here is your host, Andrew Gommonson.
Hello, Dan. It's great to be with you. And if you noticed that Irish lilt in Dan's voice, you probably have guessed what our topic is for today. We are coming to you just a couple days before St. Patrick's Day. And so I really like holidays. If you know anything about the podcast, you know that I am constantly trying to come up with content for the podcast. And as I was contemplating what to talk about on this St. Patrick's Day podcast, I was on YouTube, and
that's a dangerous place to be.
It is. I found a YouTube movie on YouTube, actually I think it was from the Fox Family Channel in the year 2000. They did a movie called St. Patrick the Legend. And so we're going to talk about that today. Rumor has it that Dan saw at least a few minutes of this film.
I did. Unfortunately.
He does not have a very high opinion of it.
It's not even the fault of the actors.
And we'll see how this comes out after we listen to a few moment clip from the film, because ironically I couldn't find an official trailer, but this is a couple minute clip from the film St. Patrick the Legend.
You wish the quote first?
We'll have a quote from St. Patrick first, and then we will go into the movie clip. Thank you, Dan, for keeping me on track.
I wouldn't want you to get lost. All right. The quote of the day. I pray to God to give me perseverance and to die that I be faithful witness to him to the end of my life for my God. St. Patrick. The Confessions of St. Patrick, with a temperate life, an epistle to the soldiers of Crotius. And now, the trailer.
Have you travelled far?
All the way from civilization.
We've been sent by Bishop Quentin, head of the Church of Britain. Well, Bishop Patrick will be delighted to have more shoulders at the wheel. Yes, indeed. Just there. Excuse me. Can anyone tell me where we'll locate Bishop Patrick? We were told we'd find him here.
I'm Patrick.
Bishop Patrick?
Yes. There are no lilies of the field in this mission. You're the new man sent by Bishop Quentin?
Yes. Then he sends his regards.
You must be tired from your journeys.
The Irish as a race seem to enjoy their squalor.
These are hard-working, honest people, as you'll soon learn when you go out into the field to preach.
The field?
We are missionaries here.
Ah, but you see, Bishop Quentin has sent us to establish the system of church taxes and arrange for the transfer of tithes to the Church of Britain.
Is that a fact?
We're trained in the means of building administrative structures.
More clerks than clerics, you'd say.
Pardon?
He what?
Yes, he, sent us back.
Was perfectly charming about it. Let us stay the night and refresh ourselves for the journey.
Pox on him! Oh. That holy, humble peasant talk. I knew it was a sham. He's taken root in Ireland. He's serving Rome instead of us.
I didn't get the impression that he's sending money to Rome either. He's building churches and paying chieftains so that members of their tribes can join his order and become ordained.
He's using church money to buy slaves.
I wouldn't quite put it like that.
He has no authority to spend the church's money. He's accountable to me in all such matters. Well?
I really don't think that's how he sees the situation.
All right, so that's a little clip from the movie, and I really enjoyed this film, and I think it's kind of difficult. You know, few weeks ago, we had our Valentine's Day podcast, and we said that there's a lot of legend and conjecture about Saint Valentine.
There's even more about St. Patrick.
Well, there's a lot about St. Patrick, except the difference is we have some definitive writings from St. Patrick, and that is where that quote came from that we had for our quote of the day. So there is a little bit of a difference there, but I definitely agree with you that there is some issues that can sometimes come to bear on when you're putting together a film project like this, but that's why the title has the legend in it. So, talking about this movie synopsis, first of all, it basically goes through the life of St. Patrick, and he starts out, he's kind of a rebellious type of kid. He has studies that he's supposed to be doing, and his parents are trying to
running
keep him in
off
check.
to go look at other things.
And he's running off for adventures. You know, that's kind of where his head is at. His head is in the clouds. And then he ends up going to this
Druidic celebration.
A Druidic celebration, which I heard at least in the comments of the YouTube video that was something that he did not do. But whatever the case may be, he was out running around, and that's when he got kidnapped and taken to Ireland. He was from Britain, and he was taken to Ireland as a slave. And after working in Ireland, I think the movie said 6 years as a slave, God communicated to him that there was a ship that was going to take him to his family, back to his family. And so he goes there. They don't want to let him on the ship, but then he prays and asks God to allow him on. And the people that own the ship, they have further discussions, and they decide, we're going to let you onto the ship free of charge. So he goes home. He's home for a little while, and once again, God speaks to him, and this time he tells him to go back to Ireland to share the gospel with these druids and these pagans.
People who know nothing about God.
One thing that we do know about Ireland at that time was that it was very pagan, very into different witchcraft type things. So one thing that is not in very much dispute is that St. Patrick brought Christianity to Ireland.
It is in fact why he's the patron saint of Ireland.
One of the funny things about it is that a lot of people, don't even view St. Patrick as a Catholic, and yet it actually seems like he had a very Protestant message of needing to come, making a personal declaration of repentance to have salvation through faith, and yet he's venerated as a Catholic saint of sorts. I don't know if he's considered an official saint, but a lot of the Catholic and possibly denominations like it, they venerate him as a saint, and St. Patrick's Day comes from the conjectured date of his death. And so I thought the film was actually pretty good. I thought there's a lot of parallels in his life to Joseph, because he goes as a slave to Ireland, then he escapes, then God calls him back to Ireland to save the Irish people. And this is where the legends kick in, because there were numerous times in the film when people try to hurt him and they're unable to do so. And he kind of supernaturally escapes injury. Now, it's debatable how much that can be the case, but but it's hard to know exactly what happened because, again, we are dealing with legend, not just a straight-up true story. And one of the reasons I felt confident in reviewing this film today is because when I looked up a review of the film, it did have a very high Dove rating. So I would encourage you to watch it. So let's break it down a little bit. First of all, Dan, I know you had some thoughts. They were more on the production side of things, but why don't you balance my enthusiasm and
I'll be the pessimist for you.
Give some thoughts.
So, of the things I liked about the movie, was actually the actors. They did, well, as far as I could see, I didn't see very much of the movie, only about a third. But they did a good job. They're good people. I respect them. And I know we're supposed to dislike the Bishop of England quite a lot. And he's very dislikable, as the trailer showed. But the negative is mostly on the production side, and it irritated me a lot of the color choices for the shamans and especially the peasantry. And you had the shamans and the druids, and unfortunately it's very obvious that they are wearing printed clothing.
Okay.
And that kind of hurt. But the good thing I did notice, Patrick's father is mentioned as a Roman tax collector. And he looks like a Roman tax collector.
Okay.
Very much so.
So they at least got that one kind of right, which I'm grateful for. So, I definitely want to be fair when I do these reviews. Not everything about every movie that I review is great. And so we want to be fair.
So what's your positive thought about the movie?
Well, the positive thought is I still think it comes through the overall message of doing what God calls you to do, even if it doesn't make sense. Like his dad at first tells him, if you leave, you're no longer my son, because he's like, why would you want to go back to the very place that enslaved you when you have everything? Because his dad was rich. His dad had
very rich.
His dad had everything that he could ever want, and yet he was contemplating going back to Ireland and going back to the very people that enslaved him. And so even when he goes to the monastery to get trained, he really has to kind of fight for the right to be trained, because at first it was kind of like they didn't really want to train him as a bishop. And then they sent a bishop to Ireland, and in the movie, the original bishop that they sent there got chased away and got scared away from the Irish people. But yet St. Patrick was determined to go there. And then it was also interesting because he was kind of, the way they portrayed him in the film, he was kind of like Martin Luther too, because he was going against the conventions of the church. The church wanted him to go and establish their church in Ireland. And
in the taxes.
And to get the taxes and perhaps even the what are those called? Indulgences, that the church was used to collecting. And he's like, I'm just a simple peasant who happens to be a preacher, That's kind of the way he lived. And when they went and visited him, like in that clip you shared, he was working right alongside them. Mm-hmm. Basically, I forget what the exact line was, but he was basically saying, there's no exalted class here,
Hey.
We all roll up our sleeves and do the work to get it done.
Well, it's very noticeable in the movie. The Bishop of Britain, the fellow you heard talking and cursing out Patrick, he wears a bright red hat and silk clothing, compared to St. Patrick, who is wearing homespun wool cloak with mantle. It's very much whatever he could find lying around, basically.
And my favorite character of the film, and I always go differently than just the main character, because that's an easy one. It would be easy to say St. Patrick's your favorite character. But St. Patrick actually had a friend that went into the monastery before him, who, even though he kind of has to fight being in that religious clique where he's trying to please his bishop, he ultimately goes above the bishop's head to the Pope and gets the opportunity for St. Patrick to stay in Ireland as the bishop, which he does for the rest of his life. And of course, the most famous legend that is talked about in the film is him using the 3-leaf clover to show the Trinity, one God, 3 persons. And my least favorite was definitely the bishop. You know, he never, the funny thing is, he never even talked to Patrick. You know, he made assumptions about Patrick. He made assumptions about what he was hearing. And so often we can do the same. Mm-hmm. When we have conflicts, the thing to do is to go directly to the person that we have the conflict with, and not to allow other people's opinions or suppositions about the person to frame the way we think. Now, obviously, based on what we saw him doing and how he sent away the people that the bishop sent, I think that was a pretty good indication to the bishop that things weren't going to go his way. So,
well, I remember at the very beginning of the movie, where Patrick performs one of his miracles, destroying the druid site. The next thing you see is the bishop, and he is causing a fuss with the locals, the local powers and powers of the church. And one of the things he says is, Patrick's God isn't God. It's himself. That's the entirety of his view of Patrick.
Which I think is ironic.
Because it's him.
Yeah, because it's exactly how he's acting. That what I say is what matters. My God is myself. You know, that's basically the way he's carrying himself, and then he's sitting there accusing Patrick of being that.
He's accusing Patrick of being himself.
Yes.
And he doesn't see it, obviously.
Which, again, also parallels with the Pharisees in the Bible, who were constantly after Jesus, when Jesus was just this humble guy who was trying to lead people to the truth. There were obvious issues with the film from a production standpoint, as Dan pointed out. I'm going to give this film a 3 out of 5. Like Dan said, the production could have been higher. And also, I'm not sure how much of the information was verified, especially some of the crazier scenes, like when he has one of his assistants walk through a fire with one of the bishop's assistants. The bishop's assistant dies in the fire. The St. Patrick's assistant walks out unscathed. Now, of course, we see a story like that in the Bible with the men in the fiery furnace. I'm just not sure that it happened with St. Patrick.
Hey.
But again, any opportunity that we have to share a story about a person who becomes sold out for the gospel and really wants to share it with others and puts himself out there to the extent that he goes back to where he was enslaved to share the gospel, I think that's worth watching. And so I would encourage you to call it up on YouTube, or if it's not there by the time you listen to this, you can probably get it on Amazon, or knowing that it's a Fox Family film, they'll probably resurrect it around St. Patrick's Day if you have Fox Family. So there's probably some opportunities to watch it, and I will try to have the YouTube link in the blog so you can take a look at this film. And above all, I hope you realize that there's more to St. Patrick's Day than just green beer and wearing green so you don't get pinched. I actually think St. Patrick would be pretty disappointed about what most people feel constitutes a St. Patrick's Day celebration.
Well, to be honest, I've always thought that the people that the church, the Catholic Church in particular, likes to call saints would be very, very disappointed in being called saints and venerated to such extent.
Well, it's actually kind of funny because I saw somebody post on Facebook, pray and ask God to make you a saint. But I'm here to tell you that I am a saint. The Bible says that I am. And the Bible's definition of a saint is anyone who has been born again by the Spirit of God. And when Paul wrote his epistles, he always wrote them to the saints at Colossae or the saints at Philippi. And you and I could be the saints of West Michigan. Not because of who we are, but because of who he is. And so I don't need to pray to become a saint because I've already become a saint through the blood of Jesus. And that's the most exciting thing that I could share with you on this St. Patrick's Day weekend. Do you have anything final to add, Dan?
Well, I'm going to direct your attention to a question. What do you think is the biggest lesson you took away from the film?
I think the biggest lesson is when, Billy Graham said, when somebody shows courage, the spine of others is stiffened. And the one consistent thing that I've read about St. Patrick is that there basically was not a part of Ireland that he didn't bring Christianity to. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person in Ireland became a Christian.
No.
Because those are extremely long odds that would happen.
It'd be very nice to have it happen.
It would be amazing to have happen. But what it does mean is that he was dedicated to bringing the gospel to all of Ireland. And it seems like he did
a fairly good job of
that.
To be evidenced by the fact that everybody in Ireland knows who he is.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, there's conflicting accounts. The legend of St. Patrick was based on his writings, but also many of the legends. It's kind of like if you grew up watching Davy Crockett, on the old Disney shows, there was a theme song for Davy Crockett back then that said that he killed a bear when he was only 3 years old. That kind of stuff we were pretty sure did not happen. But
it's a folk legend.
But yet it's a folk legend and it's a fun thing to happen. So I hope that as you watch this film, you can think of it in terms of separating the folk legend from the facts that we do know. And above all, I hope that it encourages you to study St. Patrick. Find some other things about him. There was a documentary about him that I was actually going to watch as a supplement to the film before I came in here, and I just did not have time to do it. But that's also on YouTube if you're searching for St. Patrick. And interestingly enough, it is narrated by Liam Neeson, which is a good narrative voice to have. So,
Aye.
So, just wanted to throw that out there, and I may include the link to the documentary as well when I post the blog. So you want to make sure that you are getting on the blog so that you can avail yourself of any extra notes that we throw up there that do not make it into the podcast. But I hope that you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day weekend. Stay safe and have fun, and above all, keep serving the best of masters.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Your host has been Andrew Gomison, founder of Speaking for Him. For more information on today's show and to leave us comments and voicemails, visit speakingforhim.blogspot.com. You can find Andrew's ministry at speakingforhim.com. That's speaking, 4, HIM. You can also interact with us at facebook.com/speakingforhim and on Twitter @SpeakingForHim. And when you look for us on iTunes and Stitcher, let us know what you think of the podcast by leaving a rating and review.